वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering up service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, entitled Creation, Chapter 8, Prayers of Queen Kunti and Parikshit saved. Text number 24. Visan Mahagne Purushada Darshanad Asad Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshana Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshana Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha Vishad Mahagne Purushada Darshanat Asad Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha Mride Mride Neka Maharathastrato
Astrascha Virakshitaha
Droni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha
Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshanat
Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshana
Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha
Asad Sabhaya
Vanavasa Krichrataha Mridhe Mridhe Neka Mahara Ashrato Mridhe
Neka Maharathastrato
Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha
Droni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha. Mataji. Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshana
Asad Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha
Asad Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha
Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato
Mride Mride Neka Maharathastrato
Drauni Astrastachasma Hare Virakshitaha
Droni Astratascha Hare Virakshitaha Vishanmahagni Purushadadarshana
असत्सभाया वनवासकृच्छ्रुतः
Asatsabhaya Vanavasakritshratah
मृडे मृडेनेकमहारथाश्रतो
Mridhe Mridhene Kamaharathasstrato
द्रौणी अस्त्रतश्चास्म हरे विरक्षितः
Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitah Vishanmahagni Purushadadarshana Asatsabhaya Vanavasakritshratah Mridhe Mridhene Kamaharathasstrato
हरे विरक्षिता
Drauni Astratascha Hare Virakshitah. Synonyms: Vishat, from poison; Maha Agnehe, from the great fire; Purusha Ada, the man-eaters; Darshanad, by combating; Asat, vicious; Sabhayaha, assembly; Vanavasa, exile to the forest; Krichrataha, sufferings; Mridhe Mridhe, again and again in battle; Aneka, many; Maharatha, great generals; Astrataha, weapons; Drauni, the son of Dronacharya; Astrataha, from the weapon of; Cha, and; Asma, indicating the past tense; Hare, O my Lord; Abhirakshitaha, protected completely. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: My dear Krishna, your Lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. Translation with repetition. My dear Krishna, your Lordship has protected us from a poisoned cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly, from sufferings during our exile in the forest, and from the battle where great generals fought. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Aswathama. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The list of dangerous encounters is submitted herein. Devaki was once put into difficulty by her envious brother, otherwise she was well. But Kunti Devi and her sons were put into one difficulty after another for years and years together. They were put into trouble by Duryodhana and his party due to the kingdom, and each and every time the sons of Kunti were saved by the Lord. Once Bhima was administered poison in a cake. Once they were put into the house made of shellac and set afire. And once Draupadi was dragged out, and attempts were made to insult her by stripping her naked in the vicious assembly of the Kurus. The Lord saved Draupadi by supplying an immeasurable length of cloth, and Duryodhana's party failed to see her naked. Similarly, when they were exiled in the forest, Bhima had to fight with the man-eater demon Hidimba Rakshas. But the Lord saved him, so it was not finished there. After all these tribulations, there was the great battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna had to meet such great generals as Drona, Bhisma, and Karna, all powerful fighters. And at last, even when everything was done away with, there was the Brahmastra released by the son of Dronacharya to kill the child within the womb of Uttara. And so the Lord saved the only surviving descendant of the Kurus, Maharaj Parikshit. Thus hence the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we are in this wonderful section of Srimad Bhagavatam where we are discussing this glorious prayers of Kunti Maharani. And as we have seen earlier, the verses that Kunti Maharani has prayed and offered, wonderful prayers. First one being, just to recap, because there is a gap of 7 days. Kunti uvacha namasye purusham tvadyam ishwaram prakrite param alaksham sarva bhutanam antarbahiravastitam maya javanika channam agyadhokshajam abhyayam lanakshase mudha drusha nato natyadharo yatha tatha hrishikesha khalena what is that? Tatha paramahamsanam muninam amalatmanam bhakti yoga vidhanartham katham pashyema hi striyam. This first 3 verses of Kunti Maharani actually talks about the qualifications and the disqualifications to see or not to see the Lord. What is it that is required to see the Lord? That she speaks in the first 3 verses. Then the next verses actually talks about Krishna's Nama, Rupa, Guna, Leela, all these things. Next verses, Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Wonderful names of Krishna. 5 names which are mentioned. Krishnaya, Vasudevaya, Devaki Nandanaya, Nanda Gopa Kumaraya and Govindaya. So this is the first one, names of Krishna. Then she goes on to speak about the beautiful form of the Lord. Namo Pankajanabhaya, Namo Pankajamaline, Nama Pankajanetraya, Namaste Pankajangre. What beautiful form of the Lord, Nama Rupa. The lotus naveled, the navel of the Lord is like lotus, the impression of the lotus. Nama Pankajamaline, the Lord wears a garland of Pankaja, of lotus flowers. Namah Pankaja Netraya, beautiful lotus-eyed Lord. And the feet of the Lord is also has got the impression of lotus. Namaste Pankajangre. Then from 23rd onwards, it talks about the qualities of the Lord, 23rd to 28th, which we saw in the last verse. Yatha Rishikesha Khalena Devaki Kamsena Ruddhati Chiram Sucharpita Vimochitaham Cha Sahatmaja Bibho Tvayeva Nathena Muhur Vipadganad. And then today's verse. Vishan Mahagne Purushada Darshanad Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krichrataha Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharatha Strato Drauni Astratas Chasma Hare Virakshitaha. So what is this verse talking about? And what we can learn from this verse? So this verse, Kunti Maharani is listing down some of the dangers that she has come across in her life. What are those dangers? First one is Vishan. Vishan is poison. Poison which was fed to Bhima. Vishan Mahagne. Then the second one is Mahagne, the house of Shalak, where it was set afire by Kauravas, by the envious sons of Dhritarashtra. Vishan Mahagne. Purusha Ada, the man-eater, Hidimba Rakshas. Purusha Ada, Darshanad. Asat Sabhaya. Then the next one is Draupadi being stripped naked in that vicious assembly. Asat Sabhaya. Then Vanavasa Krichrataha. The miseries encountered during the exile in the forest. Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato. Again and again encountering difficulties or challenges during the battle of Kurukshetra. Mridhe Mridhe Neka Maharathastrato. And Drauni Astratas Chasma Hare Virakshitaha. Drauni Astratas. And finally, if this is not enough, then the Brahmastra released by the son of Dronacharya. Drauni Astratas Chasma Hare Virakshitaha. But the Lord always protected. So this is the verse that we have today. If you remember the previous verse, we had, O Hrishikesha, master of the senses and lord of lords, you have released your mother Devaki, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. So this was just the introduction of Krishna's qualities, which we saw, Yatha Hrishikesha Khalena Devaki, Kamsena Ruddhati Chiram Sucharpita. For a very long time, the mother of Krishna, Devaki, was imprisoned by her own brother, Kamsa. Yatha Hrishikesha Khalena Devaki, Kamsena Ruddhati Chiram Sucharpita. Vimochitaham cha sahatmaja vibho, tvayeva nathena muhur vipadganat. So Kunti Maharani's prayer was that you released your mother, who was long imprisoned and distressed by the envious King Kamsa, and me and my children from a series of constant dangers. And we had seen in the last class how Prabhupada mentions that Krishna was showing more favor to Kunti Maharani, or Kunti Maharani feels like that, because Devaki's sons were not protected. Not all of the sons were protected by Krishna. Whereas in all kinds of dangers, Krishna not only protected Kunti, but all her sons. And then we have got this beautiful verse for today. And as I said, in this translation, Kunti Maharani is listing 7 dangers. Poisoned cake, Vishad. From a great fire, Mahagne. From cannibals, Purushada. From the vicious assembly, Asatsavaya. From sufferings during our exile in the forest, Bane Krichrataha. Vanavasa Krichrataha. From the battle where great generals fought, Mridhe Mridhe Aneka Maharathastrato. And you have saved us from the weapons of Aswathama. Drauni Astratas Chasma Hare Virakshita. So, what we can learn from this verse and what we can apply in this life, in our lives, this important verse. One thing that we have to see is the way devotees look at dangers or calamities in life. Sometimes we say, "Oh Lord, thank you for protecting us," and we forget to mention the different kinds of dangers or the calamities that we go in our lives. But here she is listing down some of the prominent ones, and how in each of them, when Kunti Maharani went through, she actually came out with the blessings of the Lord. For example, when the first case, when Bhima was administered this poison cake by Duryodhana, he went down in the netherlands of the ocean and got an elixir there. So when he drank that, he came out as strong, as having the strength of 10,000 elephants. From a great fire, of course, what good can happen from a great fire? We know that this Shalak, or the house of lac, where all these Pandavas were put inside, they were knowing very well, because Vidura had informed them, and they digged a tunnel and came out of it. But the good thing that happened, it helped them to transition to live in incognito, because that was required when the 12 years of exile, and there was a 1 year of incognito. So they could do that. Most of the people thought at that time that they are killed, or they have been burned to ashes, but they were alive. From cannibals, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Hidimba was the man-eater demon who was there, and Bhima had to face him. So when Bhima faced him, this man-eater Hidimba, he killed him. But because Bhima met this Hidimba, his sister Hidimba, whom he got married, and from their marriage was born Ghatotkacha, who actually saved Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That's the good out of that. From sufferings during our exile in the forest. And during the exile in the forest, they had to go through so many problems, so many difficulties. Durvasa Muni was sent by Duryodhana very cunningly to go at a time when they had finished their prasadam, and Krishna came and saved them again from the wrath of Durvasa Muni. He also guided Arjuna at an appropriate time to go to the heaven to get some weapons from the demigods. He actually guided each one of them when they were in forest. Now you have, sixth one, from the battle where great generals fought, and the battle of Kurukshetra, where all of these powerful Maharathis who were present, who were far more powerful and superior to Arjuna, but they were all protected by Krishna. And last but not the least, Kunti Maharani is praying, and now you have saved us from the weapon of Aswathama. Aswathama was still not satisfied. If you want to go, you can go. Don't do all this because I feel a little distracted. He's telling that, Kunti Maharani is saying that now you have saved us from the weapon of Aswathama. Aswathama released this weapon which was aimed at the last heir of Pandavas, Parikshit. And Krishna protected by entering into the womb of Uttara. Now interestingly, when we read this translation, we should see that how this is relevant for all of us who's taking up to this path of Krishna consciousness or the path of devotion. If we are firmly fixed in the path of Krishna consciousness, very interestingly, before I give that analogy or talk about that, when the battle of Kurukshetra was over, when Arjuna and Krishna seated in their chariots, finally when everything is over, Arjuna was about to get down from the chariot. He thought, let Krishna first should come out. Let Krishna should come down, and then I will come down. Because Krishna, after all, it's by his mercy I could win this battle. So he was requesting Krishna to come down. But Krishna told, no, first you get down, and then I will come out of the chariot. And the moment Krishna came down from the chariot was burned to ashes. And Arjuna was very surprised, and he asked, how did this happen? So Krishna said, this would have been burned to ashes long back. But because I was sitting here, I was protecting you from all kinds of dangers. So very interestingly, when somebody takes up to this path of devotion and fixed in Krishna consciousness, the Lord protects from all kinds of dangers. First one is a poisoned cake. Sometimes in the community of devotees, there could be someone who's poisoning the community with some gossip, with some kind of Vaishnava parad, and it can be a challenge. But if somebody is fixed firmly in Krishna consciousness, he will not be affected. From a great fire, there are always, in the life of a devotee, there could be some issues related to relationships, there could be some problems or challenges. There is something which is burning inside our heart. So Krishna protects us from that kind of a great fire. From cannibals, of course, you will not have a man-eater in Boston, but there are people who are always envious, who want to, usurp this movement. They want to finish it. They are very evil-minded, demoniac persons who are there. One has to fight with them. From cannibals. From the vicious assembly, Asat Sabhaya. There could be so many times when people do some conspiracy. They conspire against someone. Or from sufferings during our exile in the forest. Whatever it is, those conspiracies or the sufferings, Krishna protects. And then from the battle where great generals fought, like the great generals who were fighting against Arjuna. Similarly, in our life also, we get so many temptations, so many arrows which are shot by Maya, so many distractions. And so in all these circumstances, Krishna protects. That is why the word used by Kunti Maharani, very, very, very expertly, actually if one pays attention, one can learn so much by the words that she is using. The one that she used in the previous verse was a natha, but here she is using a word, I'm skipping this, called Hari. Hare Virakshitaha. Hari, actually, if you see in the meaning of the word Hari in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says Sarva Amangala Hare iti Hari, who removes all the inauspiciousness from our heart. Sarva Amangala Hare iti Hari. So when we take shelter of the Lord, He takes away all the inauspiciousness in our life. Sometimes, unknowingly, we get attached to so many material things, even though we have taken to this path of devotion. We have taken to this path of devotion, but there is something called Hridaya Daurbalyam. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the portion of Bhagavad Gita that we are chanting now, Klaivyam Masma Gama Partha Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. Klaivyam Masma Gama Partha Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. There are some things which we are very deeply attached, thinking that this is good for me. But Krishna sometimes takes away those things. Sarva Amangala Hare iti Hari. In order to make us purified, in order to make us advance in devotional life. There is a very nice example which Prabhupada quotes in Ishopanishad about this. Okay, it's actually difficult for you to see this, but anyway, this is the example which Prabhupada quotes in the book Ishopanishad of the lady who's the owner of the house and had a maid servant, and they both had fever. So when the doctor came and he saw that the owner of the house had a fever of 102 Fahrenheit and the maid servant had 105 degree Fahrenheit. So the owner of the house is telling, why I am having less than my maid servant, I should have more. So without knowing, sometimes in this material world where people are envious of each other, where people are always competing, we are also trying to increase our opulence. And in the process, when we are trying to do that, our material fever is increasing, and that material fever brings a full stop to our spiritual life. So sometimes Krishna takes away those material fever, those inauspicious things in our life. So that's why Kunti Maharani is this prayer, Hare Virakshitam. Droni astratas chasma Hare Virakshitam. So actually the miseries or the difficulties in life won't stop. They will keep coming. That we will talk in a few slides. I will talk about that. But what we should learn is from this example of Kunti Maharani, how we should learn the art of acting. Acting in this material world. Acting, it is an acronym. It stands for, when sometimes some difficulties or miseries come in our life, the first A that we should remember is accepting it. Often our mind, false ego, intelligence rebels. Why this person is like that? Why he has got so many issues? Why he is not able to behave the way I want? Why is he not able to do service? No, first we need to understand that the person has some limitations. So when we learn to accept that this person is like that, and probably we can't do much about it, he has certain limitations, then our expectations automatically go down. Otherwise, we think I was treated differently there, I may go from here to there and something else will happen. No, it's nothing is going to change. Changing the environment is not going to change, because our inside, inner consciousness, the inner battle still goes on. So first thing is to learn to accept situation, people around us, understand their limitations. The C is to clarify. Sometimes we don't clarify the situation with the other person with whom we have issues, and we small thing becomes a very big thing in our mind. I'll give you an example of someone who's still a devotee in ISKCON Bangalore, and when we chant in the morning during our japa time, this devotee always used to come and sit next to me, and his voice is very piercing. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. He'll sit right next to me, and we will join together. So he will sit right next to me and he would chant, and his chanting is so powerful. I was only hearing his chanting, not my chanting, and I was finding it very difficult. And every day he will come and sit. He likes me. I also like him. We sit together and we chant. But then the problem is I am not able to hear. So then one day, in a very nice opportune time, when he finished his prasadam, Bhagavatam class, everything, and then prasadam is over, then I told Prabhu, everything is fine. We can be together, at least in Bhagavatam class or in other places, you can sit next to me. But while chanting, when you sit next to me and chant, it is difficult for me to concentrate. And he understood. So acceptance, clarifying, and the third thing is transcending. Transcending is a very important thing. What is transcending? You can accept that, okay, this person is like that. You can try to clarify with him. Still, if situations don't change, then we should transcend. What does transcend mean? We should not get affected by the situation if, despite our acceptance and clarification, things are not improving. We should have our own plans as to how we should remain fixed in spirit. Classic example of this is Prahlad Maharaj. When Prahlad was tortured, tormented, was brutally, severely tormented, he was not affected because he was fixed in remembrance of the Lord. And in Krishna consciousness, there are plenty of opportunities that you can be fixed and you can transcend. The whole point is how we can bring our focus from matter to spirit. As long as we are absorbed in matter, in the material things, we will feel pain, or we will feel that we are not in good state of consciousness. The amount of energy that we put in thinking that this is the cause of my problem, this is why I am unhappy, the same amount of energy we can put in to come in touch with the spirit, and we can be happy. This is the technique or the art of learning how to act. If we know this properly, otherwise, every situation we can find problems, difficulties, miseries, this is not right, this is not good, and the mind can create, completely one state where you feel averse to even practice Krishna consciousness. But if you know the art of transcending, you can actually engage in Krishna service. Like, somebody who is very fond of doing DT services can be completely absorbed in that and forget about all these things which is going on around him. Or can be absorbed in chanting these wonderful verses of Bhagavatam. What sweet nectarian feeling you can get just by chanting. Bhayam tuna vitrupyama ya uttama shloka vikrame yashunvatam rasagyanam swadu swadu pade pade. Oh, it's melodious. It's just amazing. Filled with rasas. One can relish those. So there are plenty of things. We should learn this art of transcending these problems. So this is the first thing. Now I have got 3 sections and 3 lessons that we can learn from this particular verse. The first section is, one thing that we have to see is, one question that comes often in our mind also, why this world is full of dangers? Why is it? Of course, some people may still think that there is no danger, that we will see. But in Bhagavatam it is mentioned, Padam Padam Yad Vipadat. And Kunti Maharani is listing down, Mridhe Mridhe, time and again. There are so many dangers. Years after years it is coming. Why this? Why this is like that? And why the characters of Bhagavatam, if you see, Kunti Maharani is listing down the difficulties they are going through. We are sitting here in a nice, heated floor for half an hour, 40 minutes. There also we find it difficult, stretch, this, that, feel sleepy. So many problems. The moment Bhagavatam class starts, person feels sleepy. This is not, we can't help it. Because this is how our body is so conditioned, we find it very difficult. This people who are there in this Bhagavatam, they were not having a nice place to sit and hear this Bhagavatam. They are going through difficulties and miseries one after another. Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days. Imagine if the situation is that we are going to die in 7 days. Somebody has told us, the doctor has told, your time has come, this is all. You've got just 7 days time. He is hearing with rapt attention. Or somebody like Prahlad Maharaj being tormented, tortured by his own father. Father is supposed to be the most affectionate person. He is torturing him. He is trying to kill him. It's not something like that, okay, he's telling you can't associate with devotees. You're denied. You're not supposed to go to temple, or you're not supposed to. He's killing him, throwing him from the cliff. He's putting him under the mad elephants. He's burning him. He's trying to poison him. All kinds of things. Or imagine if the wife has got an husband who is impotent or who is incompetent to guide in the spiritual life. Or the husband has got someone. So Bhagavatam has got full of such characters who are going through all these difficulties and miseries. What we should learn from this? This is our expectation of life, material life that we want to live, or what we think. We will have our family, we will have our relatives and friends, and we will go for a picnic. We will enjoy life like this. This is what we want. We have a boat called life. In that, there are few passengers who have boarded. That's our family members, relatives, and with them we want to enjoy. But what this material world is designed, which we often forget to see or we don't realize, is this one. What is it that it says? The time is ticking. Actually, each one of us, we've got a time bomb. And the time is it's a matter of time when this will all come to an end. It's a fact, it's a reality. Nobody can shy away from this. In this hidden clock which is there, which is ticking, where we are all running towards death, we are completely oblivious of it. That is why, because the situation is never, it dawns or it never strikes us. We are callous, casual, even though the best gift has been given to us, the gift of devotion, engaging in devotional service, that also doesn't attract us because our conditioning is so bad, and we keep coming up with excuses of our mind, excuses of our body. Not today, tomorrow we will do, afterwards. So many things, because we are listening to our mind and senses. So what we have to learn from this examples of Bhagavatam and the descriptions which is given by Krishna, this place is a dukkhalayam asasvatam. This is a place of miseries. It's not only Kunti Maharani who's facing these miseries one after another. We all face this. But somebody still may deny, then this is asasvatam. Very good. Congratulations. You have never faced. Great. But asasvatam, this is a matter of time when this will all be over. So that is why some people, they look at the waves of the ocean and think when the waves are going to come down, I will take up to this path of devotion. No. The thing that we should learn from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam is life is always going to be challenging. There is always going to be difficulties. There is always going to be miseries. We should practice devotion now amidst all these difficulties. You can't wait. कब वो waves खत्म होगा, कब जाके तब होने के बाद I will start. No. That is why, can anybody say, sleeping self-flow, Hare Krishna? What is the first few words of Bhagavatam, first sloka? The moment you hear here and there, immediately Nidra Devi is very alert. What is the first few words of Bhagavatam, first sloka? First few words, means first. Is the first sloka, but not the first words. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is prayed by Vedavyas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which we chant 3 times. Often we don't understand the meaning of these words. The title of this first canto of Bhagavatam is Creation. If you see on the pages of Bhagavatam, why it is telling that there are every character is going through so many difficulties. Like Vritrasur, he's being cut by Indra for thousands of years, but his mind is absorbed in Krishna. So when we look at these difficulties of others, of these characters of Bhagavatam, we will at least get an inspiration that my difficulties are not as much compared to the difficulties that these people are put in, and we can practice devotion. That is one thing that we can learn. But the first few words of Bhagavatam, I was mentioning about this in the last time, how we should never forget our identity and the sense of duty in the midst of calamity and prosperity. Our identity is we are eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of the Lord. That we forget when there is calamity. And the sense of duty, I am supposed to be engaged in devotional service. If these two things, they get affected when there is calamity or prosperity. When the prosperity comes, it brings that pride and false ego, and a person becomes completely mad, intoxicated, hallucinated, and megalomania or whatever it is. And then who's God? I am control of everything. Or calamity, when things, when the material energy slaps us, we think, why I've been tormented? What is this? Why I did so much? Why Krishna is putting me? That we should never forget the identity and the sense of duty. And this is what we should learn from these examples of Kunti Maharani. I had spoken about this verse, I'll quickly go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I don't know how many of you have gone through the purport of the first verse of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Wonderful purport. And so many things to learn, because This is not about some story. This is not about some things that we learn, as some information. Okay, now what are you learning in Bhagavatam? We are reading about Kunti Maharani prayers. So what did you learn in Kunti Maharani's prayers? Now Kunti Maharani is offering these prayers. Krishna was about to leave. She offered some prayers, and then Krishna left. Kunti Maharani was busy in her lives. This is all we remember. Actually, Bhagavatam has got more to offer. And that more to offer is something which we have to see. That is what is the beauty of Bhagavatam. What is it that Bhagavatam is trying to tell us? What is it that Bhagavatam is trying to bring that revolution in our lives? If you see the purport of this verse, the first paragraph of this purport, Prabhupada is writing, Vasudev or Lord Sri Krishna is the cause of all causes. Everything that exists emanates from the Lord. How this is so is explained in later chapters of this work. So, who is Vasudev? Vasudev or Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes. Everything that exists emanates from the Lord. And this work is described by Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya as the spotless Purana because it contains the transcendental narration of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Actually, the only reason why this creation has come about, the only purpose behind this creation, some people say that it is created so that the conditioned living entities can enjoy. That's not the primary purpose. The primary purpose of the creation is so that we can develop that love of Godhead for Krishna. That is the only purpose. And that is why this is called spotless Purana. Because the relationship of the living entity with the Lord is spotless. Prema. There is no ambiguity. There is no contamination in that. Like the material relationship, even if it is, the purest which we know is between the mother and the child, still there is some expectation. The mother expects that, the child when he grows, maybe he will take care of me in the old days. But apart from that, all material relationships are strained or contaminated. There is mala. But this is spotless because this talks about the relationship of the living entities with Krishna, which doesn't have any blemish, which doesn't have any contamination. The real purpose of this creation is how we can come to that stage of developing love of Krishna. The history of the Srimad Bhagavatam is also very glorious. It was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva after he had attained maturity in transcendental knowledge. He wrote this under the instructions of Sri Naradji, his spiritual master. Vyasadeva compiled all Vedic literatures containing the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and so on. Actually, if you go through in the little later in Bhagavatam, the pages of Bhagavatam, you will see that Vyasadeva was not happy, not satisfied. And it is mentioned, this was spotted by Narad Muni, and he says, "O Vyasadeva, O great son of Parasar, Mahabhaga, you must be very satisfied by compiling Vedic literatures where the object of our attention is mind and senses." Actually, the whole world, if you see, every one of us, we are trying to keep our body comfortable, or we are trying to keep our mind comfortable, or senses. Body, mind, and senses. These are the 3 things we are trying to make them comfortable. And if somebody tries to do that, he can never be satisfied. He wrote this under the instructions of Sri Naradji, his spiritual master, that the 4 divisions of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and so on, but nevertheless he was not satisfied. His dissatisfaction was observed by his spiritual master, and thus Narada advised him to write on the transcendental activities of Lord Sri Krishna. These transcendental activities are described specifically in the 10th canto of this work, but in order to reach to this very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. So the last line of this purport, but in order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. Very important thing which Prabhupada is saying. Knowledge of the categories. We are actually stuck. We've got one kind of a notion in our life that I am supposed to take care of my body, keep it in a very comfortable position, and I am supposed to take care of my mind and senses. At the most, mind is disturbed, let us go to temple. Some peace we will get. Something will happen. That is not the whole goal. The whole goal is we are spirit, soul, different from this body and mind. And we have an eternal relationship with the Lord. We can be completely satisfied by engaging in His devotional service. Yam labdhva chaparam labham. That is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. This is the guarantee. You can actually remain completely happy if you are fixed in your constitutional position and engaging devotional service. But in order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. There is another thing which Prabhupada mentions in this, but for the time being I'll skip this and go to the next thing. What happens is basically, as I was mentioning, why we get disturbed. Why? Because what is the reason why our mind and senses are not able to perceive that happiness which is there in serving Krishna? Why we are not able to see that, and why we don't get motivated to come? That is because we are actually completely under the purview of this lower modes of material nature. We are completely under the influence of the lower modes, which is called mode of ignorance and passion. Somebody who's in the mode of ignorance, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, he is lazy and crazy. So if a person who is lazy and crazy, he either he is lazy for devotional life or he is crazy. So he can never understand Krishna. A person who is lazy and crazy will not have appreciation or understanding what the supreme absolute truth is. Then somebody may say, okay, I can be passionate. I can have a goal that let me achieve this in life, and I will somehow or other I'll have this goal that I have to be engaged in devotional service. I'll come, I'll try to follow, I'll try to attain Krishna. Still it is not possible, because mode of passion gives rise to two things. One is called Ichha and Dvesha, lust and envy. It is mentioned in the 3rd chapter. Because of this mode of passion, Kama esha Krodha esha Rajoguna Samudbhava Mahasano Mahapapma Vidhyenam Hyavairinam. It comes from the mode of passion. So a person who is passionate that I want to do this, that is why, and lust and envy, when it comes, understanding the Lord doesn't happen. 2nd verse of Bhagavatam, it says, what is that? Dharma projita kaitavo atro paramo nirmad saranam satam. One has to be completely free from that envy in the heart. Then only one can understand Lord. But deep inside, deep within, we have got this envy which is filled in our heart. That is a symptom of mode of passion. If a person is predominantly in the mode of passion, you can take up to this path of devotion. You can at least, you can do something. Maybe you can transcend yourself from the lower modes to the higher modes, but you still cannot understand Krishna. Why? In 3rd chapter itself, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Jnana Vijnana Nasanam. This lust, actually, it destroys the spiritual knowledge. So a person who is taking up to this path of devotion or something in the mode of passion, matter of time, when there is a difficulty, his taste for reading Bhagavatam will go down. That somehow one has to protect, and the protection comes by coming to the mode of goodness. And this is very beautifully given in this Nectar of Instruction preface, which is one of the most beautiful writing of Srila Prabhupada. In one page, there are so many powerful instructions which are given. And that Prabhupada is saying, in all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Forget about it. Somebody says, no, I'll be in mode of passion, I'll be in mode of ignorance, I will not come, I'll do whatever, I'll remain in an unclean manner, I'll do whatever I want to, and I can achieve God. Impossible. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Everyone within this material world is engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. That is why this is highlighted. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, Sattva Guna, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami, and then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. One must promote to goodness. Without that, everything further will be revealed. One has to pray so that I can come to the mode of goodness. Then only the spiritual knowledge will strike. Otherwise, with our mind, this business of ignorance and passion, we are lazy, crazy, or we are, just having some unlimited passion. We cannot fathom the Supreme Lord. So, in the purport of this verse of Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter, which Krishna says, what is that? Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanitam vimudha nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. One vision is, which we all of us have got, the vision of our mind, where it is telling that I should not do this, who's going, all this kind of a crazy thing the mind is telling. The other side is listening through the eyes of Chakshu, Jnana Chakshu, through the eyes of the scriptures. So we have to always choose to hear, to listen from the eyes of the scriptures or through the scriptural vision. When we have that vision, then we will see things as they are, not what we want to see. So this is the first lesson that we learn. Very interestingly, in the same second chapter, when we are chanting these verses, we all know that this verse is the point of inflection in the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna, where Arjuna, instead of becoming a friend, decided voluntarily to become a disciple of Krishna. Anybody who can chant this verse without looking at the thing? Very nice. So all of us, we know this verse, very famous verse. That's where the whole dynamics changed, because Krishna began to speak after Arjuna voluntarily surrenders. Karpanya doshopahata swabhava prichami tvam dharma samudacheta. Actually, this is the learning from all these things that I'm trying to say. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. If you really want to solve any problem in your life, any problem, whatever that problem may be, environmental problem, economic problem, financial problem, relational problem, without taking shelter of Krishna, it is not possible. Impossible. So here the problem that Arjuna is stating is something very profound. Karpanya dosha. This miserly weakness has overcome me. And now I am asking you this question. Yat shreyasyan nischitam bruhitanme. Tell me which is ultimately beneficial for me. Nischitam bruhitanme. Decisively, assertively. Sishyasteham. Now I am your soul surrendered. You sadhimam tvam prapannam. You instruct me. But very interestingly, though we know this sloka, the sloka which comes after this is something even more powerful. Actually, we don't pay so much importance to this. Nahi prapashyami mama panudyat yat shokam uchcho sanam indriyanam avapya bhumau asapatnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. For the time being, if you imagine, if Arjuna has surrendered, that is the 7th verse, and Krishna also says, okay, Arjuna, fine, you have surrendered to me. Here is the kingdom. I will ensure that the battle doesn't happen, but that's what you want, and I'm giving you this kingdom. You are the king of this kingdom that this battle is going on for. So you take this kingdom and you enjoy there. Avapya bhumau asapatnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. Asapatnam, even if there is no rivalry, oh Krishna, if I get that kingdom also, assuming that I get this, Chadhipatyam and Rajyam Suran, even bigger than Bhumau, all the entire material world is now under my control. But still, Yat Sokam Uchcho Sanam Indriyanam. It is now no more about this kingdom. It is now no more about this battle. Actually, this lamentation is drying up my senses. Nahi prapasyami mama panudyat yat shokam uchcho shanam indriyanam. It is drying up. Krishna, you have to do something. I don't know what to do. So, mind you, sometimes people think that this battle of Kurukshetra happened just because, there was, Arjuna was confused and it was regarding a kingdom. The fight was between the two brothers, two sides of the brothers to get this kingdom. Not true, because he is having this basic existential problem that can happen to any one of us. And it can only be solved by taking shelter of Krishna, by engaging in his devotional service. This is the lesson 1. Section 2, quickly. This is a story of a soldier who was actually fighting in a battle. It's actually a real life story. And it was a young army. All of them were very young and they were having that, the josh, and they wanted to just fight and they wanted to go and try their level best. And when this was going on, all of a sudden the strength on the opposite side, on the enemy side, it increased. The strength increased so much that they thought that there is no way that they can win the war, and they started retreating, and they started to run for their lives. So this young soldier, he realized that he is now far from all his other comrades. There is nobody around him, and he is by himself. So to protect himself, he entered into a cave, and he knew that the enemies are just right behind him. And he's tired and exhausted and doesn't have any hope. He doesn't know what to do. And he's completely, hopeless. There's no strength. And just entered into this cave. And all of a sudden, he's praying to the Lord. Oh Lord, please protect me from this dangerous situation, from this calamity. I can hear those footsteps of those soldiers. They're right behind me. They're coming. What can you do, O Lord? Please save me. And then he saw that the entrance of the cave, there was a spider who was trying to spin this web. And then he's looking at that and he's thinking, my God, Lord, I'm asking for protection from this army who's having all these mighty weapons and they're coming to kill me. One spider is spinning a web. What is going to happen? But all of a sudden, when those people came, those enemies, at the entrance of the cave, when they saw that there was a spider web, they didn't enter. Because they thought that if somebody had to enter, they should have broken this. So there is, for sure, there is nobody inside. So the lesson that we can learn from this is, where God is, a spider's web is as a stone wall. And where there is no God, a stone wall is as a spider's web. Actually, if we forget this important, Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. If we have Krishna on our side, if Krishna is there in our life, even a small spider's web can protect us. But if Krishna is not there, he may be staying inside a stone wall or even a very big fort or something. Still it is of no use. Section 3, last section. This is a conversation with Srila Prabhupada. Very interestingly, when we talk about Krishna's protection, that is what Kunti Maharani is telling. What is it that Krishna protects? Sometimes we see that there are some calamities like COVID or something happens, people die. Some devotees for whom the whole society is praying, everything is going on, you want that devotees to be protected or something, still he dies. So what is it that Krishna protects, and what is it that we should ask for Krishna's protection when we are praying? When there are dangers, when there are calamities, what should we pray? Very interesting, this conversation. This is there in Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. Pay attention, because our attention is also wonderful. So it's a very interesting conversation, because some stories and conversation brings us back to this thing. Otherwise, some philosophy is boring. When Prabhupada arrived at the home of Mr. Ram Nivas Dandaria in New Delhi, a waiting reporter interviewed him. I understand, said the reporter, that by Krishna you mean some eternal principle. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Many people consider that Vasudevaya means some eternal principle. Prabhupada immediately clarifies and says, I do not mean a principle. Prabhupada replied, I mean a person like you and me. Prabhupada explaining that Lord Krishna as the Supreme Person, when suddenly sirens began sounding. So there was this reporter was waiting, and then he said, eternal principle. Prabhupada is saying, no, Krishna is a person like you and me. Suddenly some sirens, started sounding. Blackout, blackout, cried the reporter and others in the house. War between Pakistan and India had been imminent for weeks, and air raid drills and warnings were now commonplace in Delhi. Sir, the reporter spoke tensely in the darkened room. This is the presence of reality. We are being threatened by this fight with Pakistan. The siren is ugly reality coming for us. Imagine, if for God forbids, if Pakistan, declares an attack or a war on India, and probably the place that we are staying, that is the worst affected. Bombardments which are happening, like it's happening in maybe in Gaza or whatever, Ukraine, Russia, or somewhere like that, and we are caught up in that kind of a situation. What we will pray? We will pray, oh God, somehow protect us. What should we do? How much of danger, how much of threat it is to our lives? Who will come to a temple, or who will do this? And people will be all sitting in their rooms or trying to close all the doors or something, or they go inside somewhere basement, somewhere I have to hide. That kind of a thought will be going on. See what Prabhupada is saying. Sir, the reporter spoke tensely in the darkened room. This is the presence of reality. We are being threatened by this fight with Pakistan. The siren is the ugly reality coming for us. Prabhupada is saying, Prabhupada is clarifying, we are always in the ugly reality, 24 hours a day. Suppose there is no blackout. Still, if you go in the street, there is no guarantee that you will get home. In this way, you are always in the ugly reality. Why do you say only this blackout? This is just one of the features of the ugly reality. That's all. Reporter. But at the moment, Prabhupada, you do not realize that you are in ugly reality 24 hours a day. Padam padam yat vipadam. There is danger at every step. Reporter. I know, sir, but this is collective, national danger. Have you anything to offer us as a remedy? Prabhupada is saying, Krishna consciousness is our only remedy. Take to this process and you will be happy. Reporter. Sir, I think someone should go to the Yahya Khan, the president of Pakistan, Prabhupada. What benefit will you derive by going to Yahya Khan? Reporter, someone is out to kill me, Prabhupada. But suppose Yahya Khan doesn't kill you, will you be safe? Then what is the use to go to Yahya Khan? You will die today or tomorrow. If you want to save yourself, then go to Krishna. That is our proposition. Even if you go to Yahya Khan and he does not fight, then you mean to say that you will live forever? What is the use of flattering Yahya Khan? Flatter Krishna, so that you may be saved perpetually. Why don't you do that? Actually, this is the trick, this is the secret which Prabhupada is revealing. Reporter is telling, I was only thinking in terms of collective security. I can see your point, Prabhupada. You should know that you are always in danger. Reporter, yes sir, we agree. The late Einstein said the same thing. Prabhupada, that is our position. And Krishna says, I will save you. Therefore, let us go to Krishna. Why go to Yahya Khan? Reporter, simply because he is disturbing us, that's all. Prabhupada, your mind is always disturbing you all the time, because it is always with you. Your body is always with you. Are you not suffering from your bodily pains? Why don't you go to Yahya Khan to cure your pains? You are always in danger. Why don't you realize that? So the point is, when we are asking for protection from Krishna, we should ask, as it is there in Bhagavatam, in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, he is telling, I am not worried about my body being destroyed. I am worried my mind being distracted. I don't want that to happen. Actually, this is the biggest problem. Why we are not able to take up to Krishna consciousness sincerely? Why we lack that? Why somebody has to be behind us? Why somebody has to tell, why are you not coming? Why are you not coming? Because the mind is disturbed. And when the mind is disturbed, nothing will work. So our prayer should be to Krishna, oh Krishna, protect my mind. Let it not get distracted. Let it not get distracted by so many temptations. We are always in danger, but because our mind is distracted, we are not able to perceive that. To finish our time together, the third lesson is, there's a prayer which is offered by Prabodhananda Saraswati. Very beautiful prayer. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Samsara dukkha jalado patitasya kama krodhadi nakra makarai kavali kritasya durvasana nigaditasya nirashrayasya chaitanya chandra mamadehi padabalambam. Samsara dukkha jalado patitasya kama krodhadi nakra makarai. Beautiful imagery, beautiful imagination by Prabodhananda Saraswati. This samsara is the cycle of birth and death, or our present existence, is compared to dukkha jaladho. It's an ocean of miseries. Samsara dukkha jaladho. And I am fallen into this dukkha jaladho, patitasya. And there are sharks, there are big, fierce aquatics who are ready to gulp us. Who are they? Kama krodhadi nakra makarai kavali kritasya. Kama and krodha. Like krodhadi, etc. Kama is lust and anger, etc. Are like sharks and big whales. They are ready to pounce. They are ready to kill us. Kama krodhadi nakra makarai kavali kritasya. But he is telling, my legs and hands are chained. Durbasana nigaditasya nirashrayasya. How will I protect myself? Because my hands and legs are chained by durbasana, by so many material desires. Chaitanya Chandra Mamadehi Padabalambam. Oh Chaitanya Chandra, if you just, oh Gauranga Mahaprabhu, if you give your hand and just pull me out of this, that is the only way I can come out of it. So our real problem is how we should, when we are trying to ask for protection from the Lord, we should ask that our mind should not get distracted to any other things. Our mind should not get, carried away by other things. That is what the prayer in Prahlad Maharaj's thing. He is worried about the benediction of Narsimhadev, but he was not worried about the difficulties he was thrown into. It is not some toothache or some back pain or some knee pain or my eyes is not able to see. Big calamities they were put into, but he was not worried because he was remembering Krishna. So if we are able to remember Krishna, who's the real savior, the real protector, then life is a success. So in summary, the three things that I spoke about in the session today. First thing that we saw is how Kunti Maharani is praying in this verse. Who's, how Krishna brings the real auspiciousness, right? Sarva Amangala Hare iti Hari. Sarva Amangala Hare iti Hari. And then learning the art of act, which is acceptance, and then clarifying, and if both doesn't work, then transcending. And then we saw how this, why this world is material, this full of dangers. Though we want to enjoy, we want to have a nice time, but the time is always ticking. And Bhagavatam is full of such characters who are going through all kinds of difficulties, be it Parikshit Maharaj, be it Dhruva Maharaj, be it who else, Dhritarashtra, or whoever it is. They're going through all kinds of difficulties. Yet they're understanding this, they're telling about this one thing, that this material world is Dukhalayam and Asaswatam. And we should not wait for the waves to subside before we want to take baths. So we cannot prolong or procrastinate this process of devotion, thinking that everything, once it is settled down, then I'll take up. We have to learn to be engaged in devotion despite all these difficulties and dangers in our lives. Looking at these examples, we can also see how our difficulties are very less. Nobody is threatening our life like Hiranyakashipu was doing to his own son. Maybe our little bit here and there, our family members are not understanding. That's okay. I still should be very determined to practice the devotional life. How we should not forget our identity and sense of duty, despite the fact that we are going through calamity and prosperity. Then this particular verse, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, what is it? In order to reach to the very substance, one must proceed gradually by developing knowledge of the categories. And then we saw how coming to the mode of goodness is very important. Otherwise, passion and ignorance, lazy crazy, or it will jnana vijnana nasanam. If you are there in passion, it will not work. One has to somehow transcend to come. Then further things will be revealed, as Rupa Goswami says in Nectar of Instruction. One is seeing through the eyes of mind, the other one is seeing through the eyes of scriptures. When we learn the art of seeing things through the eyes of the scriptures, we will remain fixed in the actual, the absolute truth. Otherwise, it's very difficult to, follow the dictation of our mind and senses. So then we saw how this is, despite all the problems in our life, we should learn the art of surrendering to Krishna, whatever the problem may be. If there is no Krishna, it's impossible to get solution. And we saw Arjuna's this fundamental existential crisis. It's not about winning the war or winning the kingdom. He says, my this sokam, this lamentation is drying up my senses. Please help me. Then we saw the story of this soldier, and the lesson that we learned is, where God is, a spider's web is as a stone wall. And where God is not, a stone wall is as a spider's web. And the third one, this conversation with Prabhupada, what we should pray to the Lord to protect. Not our physical body. Physical body anyway is going to perish. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Yahya Khan, even if he's stopping this war, tomorrow we will die. We are going on the street, something can happen, we can die. What we should pray is our mind should not get distracted. Somehow or other, our mind should be engaged in Krishna's service. The biggest culprit is our mind. And we saw these prayers by Prabodhananda Saraswati, where he's telling that I'm tied by these chains. Yes, there are Krodhadi Nakramakarai, there are sharks and whales which are there, which are waiting to pounce on me, but what to do? I'm tied by this materialistic desires. Oh Chaitanya Chandra, Mama Dehi Padavalambam. Somehow or other you extend your hand and pull me out of this samsara dukkha. Jalado. These are some of the points from this verse. Any questions, any comments? So what others are doing, we have very less control over that. But when we see those behaviors, we should know that they are under the influence of the lower modes of material nature. But when we are looking at that, what we don't realize is there are many anarthas which are there inside us. Right? It is not about them, it's about us trying to become pure or trying to come out the modes of material nature. So actually, the more we are fixed in the mode of goodness, the less we will be affected by this lower modes of influence. So we should strive hard to come to the mode of goodness. Otherwise, what happens? Once in a while we come to the temple or we do some devotional service, we only see those faults. We see only those bad things. And our mind gets overwhelmed or carried away by all those things, and we are not able to see the good things in going on in the temple or It's preventing, it's actually acting as an obstacle. There is a very nice real life story of a devotee who was about to leave the association of devotees when Prabhupada was physically present. So he said, Prabhupada, I'm just not able to tolerate anymore. I'm done with this. No, this thing, the temple is, management is not good. Nobody is listening to me. Nobody is able to understand me. I'm just fed up with this, all these things. So Prabhupada said, okay, you want to leave, that's fine. Before you leave, I just want you to do this one service. You take this glass of hot milk and go around the temple and come back to me. So the devotee said, okay, I mean, that's all I have to do? Yeah. He said, yeah, that's all you have to do. And the milk was filled till the brink of the glass. So he carried that, went around all the places and came back. And then Prabhupada said, so the devotee said, so Prabhupada, here is the glass that you wanted and I'm keeping it, I'm going. So Prabhupada said, when you were carrying this glass and you went around, did you see that the devotees were gossiping? Did you see that the management was not doing properly their work? Did you see something else which was not right? He said, no. So why? Because I was fully focusing on this thing. Same holds true also in our life. When we want to see the faults and these things of others, our mind will be absorbed in that. Instead of that, we should learn the act of focusing on spirit, which is what Prahlad Maharaj was doing. He was there in the midst of association of all demons, and his father is trying to kill him in all possible ways. But his mind was fixed. He is not seeing any this thing. He is fixed in that thing. So when we learn that art of fixing our mind and consciousness in Krishna, then these material problems will not affect. Because our goal and our consciousness, our absorption is not strong, so mind goes here and there to see all, hey, usne aisa pehna, usne aisa kiya, usne mere ko dekha nahi, Hare Krishna nahi bola, all kinds of things comes. And we get disturbed. Our disturbance is an impediment. Upapandavas, like who are they?
Like
The sons of Pandavas. Why he didn't? One thing which is very clear is Pandavas are great devotees of the Lord. Right? The Lord doesn't protect anyone and everyone. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Just because somebody has come or something is doing. Actually, our degree and level of surrender is what is the yardstick. Somebody is fully surrendered, the Lord will. Krishna's assurance in Bhagavad Gita, aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayisyami mahasucha. But our degree of surrender is not 100%. But we expect the reciprocation from the Lord in terms of protection to be more than 100%. My father, my own father, he is not well. We think like that. And chanting kar raha hu, ye kar raha hu. What chanting we are doing? If the surrender is 100%, reciprocation is also 100%. So Pandavas were fully surrendered. Be it, take any example wherever, that Arjuna and Duryodhan, when they are meeting Krishna and deciding whether Krishna will be there on their side or their army. Arjuna had no this thing in selecting Krishna weaponless. So that is the status of the devotees. In the next prayer we will see how Kuntimarani is saying Vipada Santu Tasasva Tatra Tatra Jagadguru. I want more calamities because that is giving me an opportunity to remember you. She is not worried about those calamities, but in our case, one tooth problem, something happens, then we feel so disturbed. We don't have that conviction on Krishna's protection. This is the difference between a normal struggling devotee and a fixed devotee. Any other question? Duty. You were not there in the last class, but identity is basically that is the root cause of our problem. When we are identifying ourselves with the body, We are thinking I have to take care of the body and my bodily extensions. That's my immediate family members. But our true identity is Jivera Swarup hai Nitya Krishna Das. Mamaivamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. I have got nothing to do with this body. This body will lie here. But I am accepting that. So when I understand my true identity, I am spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and my sense of duty that I am supposed to engage in devotional service. That's all. If these two things, so Kunti Maharani is praying that more and more dangers or calamities come, because that gives me an opportunity to meet Krishna. So one side we have calamity plus Krishna, maybe the other side is prosperity but no Krishna. And if there is a selection that I have to make, if there is a choice I have to make, Kunti Maharani is selecting calamity with Krishna. But can we do that in life? That is where the real mettle of a devotee is tested. When everything is going fine, बच्चे का advancement हो रहा है, मतलब promotion हो रहा है, जो भी है, अच्छा marks मिल रहा है, मेरा भी exams, in my office everything is appreciating me, I am getting this thing. And then remaining Krishna conscious in that is very easy. But when difficulties, these are not difficulties, these are calamities. And she is asking more and more calamities should come. Because it is giving me a chance to meet Krishna. And meeting Krishna, it will napunar bhava darshanam. No more, seeing this cycle of birth and death. So for our conditioned state, we don't understand the gravity of the problem that we are in. Because of the curtain of Maya. We don't understand that again I have to take birth, again I have to go through this cycle, how miserable, how difficult this situation is. And here is a path I can take up to this path of Krishna consciousness, I can come out of it. But that doesn't strike us because of the layers of ignorance, it doesn't strike. So that is why there is a lack of seriousness, or there is a lack of determination, there is a lack of conviction to practice. But when we come in association of devotees, when we chant very sincerely, even while chanting, inattentive is a problem, is an offense. To remain just doing it mechanically, somebody was telling me that he's walking from one place to another. That is when he's chanting, putting his hand inside the jacket, because that's what he can do. But so many thoughts will be going on, you're looking at so many things, how will you be chanting attentively? So, but if we do that, if we are able to chant attentively, if we are able to, then we are completely, destroying the lower modes of material nature. That is needed. Otherwise this will not strike. Any other questions? We'll stop here. We have a kirtan practice now, so we'll stop here and see these wonderful prayers of Queen Kunti. And as I said, these are not just some one or two verses which we have to memorize or read or just get the gist and get going, but rather try to see the spiritual aspects of it and see how we can apply it in our life. All these are great examples. The Bhagavatam is filled with such examples of great devotees. You imagine Bhismadev going through that, not even a square inch of his body left where all these arrows are pierced, but his mind is fixed in that consciousness of Krishna. That is what we have to learn. That's the art of learning this in this whole